And the other thing I don't get is how can I drop it? I was at home masking up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is very different. I don't know if seats.
Well, that's been people sign up, they don't show up. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. How to understand.
definitely.
I'm already feeling it. We haven't started to go.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Erica Johnson. I'm the Chief Electoral Officer of the AMS. And welcome to this year's 38th Rector debate. So I'd like to thank you all for coming out here tonight from 6:30 until 8:30. And then we'll have a short break after our segment of questions. And then we'll move to audience questions. And the debate today will be co-moderated with Laura, who is the secretariat, and she'll be taking over after our permission for audience questions. So just a bit of housekeeping things before we begin. Please keep your masks on and ensure you are sanitizing when you come in and when you leave. Please ensure you're cheering and clapping to the end of each question and if you need to leave or if you need to leave. The structure of the debate will be as follows. Candidates will draw numbers from 1 to 6 for the opening and closing statements corresponding to the number and the question. They will each have 2 minutes for the opening statement, and they will take turns asking questions and asking questions in our 4 rounds. The round will consist of the rector position, student life, and campus issues and university. Round and as well as policy proposals. And in a twist, each candidate has 1 opportunity to offer a rebuttal to another candidate, and they will do that by raising their placard. We will then have a quick 10-minute intermission, and then a 30-minute audience question period. At the end, candidates will have a 2-minute closing statements. So all candidates will be answering different questions, however, all the questions will be similar in their scope. Please note that we'll be taking out sensitive topics and sharing the live. We will be talking about sensitive topics and sharing the live experience of students and other candidates. So just like acknowledgement, I first want to acknowledge that and take the time to acknowledge that JM is situated on Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. And as we carry on our capacity as student leaders tonight, we must continue to educate ourselves and strive to decolonize every layer of our governance system and curricula, and to indigenize our learning. So we'll now move into our 2-minute opening statements, and the order will be as follows. So we'll start with Caitlin, and then we'll go to Sila, and then we'll go to Emil, and then we'll go to Owen, and then Will, and then we'll finish off opening statements for everyone. I also timer my phone, so as soon as the timer goes off, that's when it's cue to statement our 2-minute opening statement, and the order will be as follows. So we'll start with Caitlin, and then we'll go to Sila, and then we'll go to Emil. Okay, Caitlin, please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Sankaran Wee, and I'm a second-year student. I'm a psychology.
Mike is right there.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
And you can stand up if you need to.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Caitlin Sankaran Wee, and I'm a second-year student. I'm a psychology major, employment relations minor, and I'm enrolled in the certificate in law program. I've always been interested in student government as it is inspiring to be able to represent your peers while working alongside like-minded individuals and learning from the adults in charge. In particular, the rector position attracted me as it is one of a kind in the sense that it encompasses the entire Queen student community, advocating for undergraduate and graduate students alike. My platform pillars are 3 issues that I'm passionate about and subsequently represent my values. As such, they align with my initials. C for communication, S for sustainability, and W for wellness. The motto of the rector is be a leader and a servant. I would strive to embody this message by serving Queen's students first, and therefore leading us towards our best selves. Thank you.
Hello and good evening, Queen students. My name is Saiba and I'm running to be your rector. I'm currently in 3rd year studying biotechnology and I'm also currently doing a law certificate. So I am very passionate, driven, and committed to being your rector, just because through my experiences here at Queen's, I have showcased my love for governance and politics and feel that I am deserving of this role. Through my 1st year journey, I started off as the 1st year representative of ASIS and now am currently a student senator of ASIS that also sits on Senate. And through Senate, I also sit on 3 Senate committees as well as 3 ASIS committees. And I have shown my devotion and commitment to Senate and governance through being awarded the Margaret Uwe Governance Award, which is awarded to the person who has shown an outstanding commitment to Senate. So through these various roles and through me showcasing my commitment to being a rector, I want to be your rector. Through this, I am trying to showcase 3 pillars, which includes increasing student wellness, increasing student engagement, and being transparent with all information that's provided. Thank you so much, and I hope I have your support.
Hello everyone, my name is Neil Matisse. I am a neuroscience graduate student. I am also, like my colleagues, running for rector. I have had the opportunity to serve on Senate, 2 Senate subcommittees, 3 subcommittees on our neuroscience faculty, and I absolutely love engaging with our students and engaging on student issues. That's the reason why I'm running here, because I want to make sure that we have a suitable candidate running for rector. I have many different community initiatives that I've been participating in over the years, and I really engage and care deeply about it. This has been everything from volunteering in light of COVID at our local hospitals and making sure that students are represented and that their needs are met. I believe that I have a unique perspective as a graduate student and because I've studied at more than 6 institutions in various levels. I'm here, no matter what, to support the students and my fellow candidates and make sure that Queen's gets the best representation they can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks to the AMS election team, and thank you for everyone who was able to make tonight happen. My name is Owen. I'm a 3rd year sociology and politics student who's also doing a certificate in business. I'd like to start off tonight with a story that I realized that there needs more support for students. One of my good friends he experienced a dramatic event a few weeks ago, and I watched him navigate the services that are available to Queen students. There are many, and they are vast, but he didn't know where to start. In doing so, in watching him in this journey, I noticed that there was a severe lack in leadership for community members. He could have gone to the AMS, he could have gone to his faculty society members, but they don't support the services that he needed. He needed housing relocation, he needed to talk to the ombudsperson, and he needed academic support, and he needed social support. So what could we do to make it so that there is a position that is available to students, to point them in the right direction, to support them, and to follow up, to make sure that their needs are met? That position is the rector, and that's why I'm running today. I saw his experiences, I saw how he was honestly lost, and he didn't know where to go. He didn't want to go directly to the administration because they're adults. You aren't able to relate with them as you are to a student. So that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm running to be your rector, because there needs to be someone who's able to provide those resources to uplift and amplify. Thank you.
Hello everybody, thank you for being here. My name is William and I'm a 1st year arts and science student hoping to do the specialization politics, philosophy, and economics. And I am running to be the student's rector. What I mean by this is that I am running because as a student, as a 1st year, as an undergraduate, I live, experience, and feel the same struggles that all undergraduates and graduates live and experience. So that's why I'm running, because I want to be your representative and the student's representative. To do this, I have 3 key pillars to my platform. First, hard work. As a student, I have always been involved in student government, from when I was quite young to now. At my last school, I even created the first student government that had ever been there. I am a Chernoff scholar, and I'm somebody who, when I put my mind to it, gets stuff done. Second, communication. I want there to be more communication between the AMS, between ACES, ComSoc, the administration, between all students and everybody, because it's through communication that we can bring change. So I want to bring the administration and student government to the students. And lastly, change. This is probably the most important one. There's lots of things that need to change at Queen's, but the first thing that needs to change is students need to know who the rector is and how they can go to the rector for assistance with budget, with many different things. So I want to make sure that that is the first thing that changes. And after that, the things that I will change are not things that I will impose and assume that Queen students need, but things that I hear from Queen students. Because it's my job to be your representative, not to decide what needs to happen. So thank you, and thanks for being here.
Dear delegates, and then to all the people who have came tonight, and to those who are watching this debate in front of the screen. My name is Liu Yan. I'm a first-year outside student. Haven't decided what I'm going to pursue after. So in the past years, things has happened to me, to you, to all of us. We have been isolated from home for months, and then leave from friends and many from family. But the resilience we can find in this community at Queen's was astounding in some cases. And then we can see from the close friendship we had with friends, and then the spirits of play hard, study hard, play hard. Yeah. So, but as a newcomer to this community, but who has held 12 positions in 7 different student governments or clubs, I would say there's 4 things we must and we should address. First is record low student engagement in nearly all student government and clubs. And the second thing is the career development in this constantly changing world, which defines the uncertainty in some cases. And then the third, the mental health issues that we all have in some degree of comments right now. And then the lastly will be to provide financial support to those who need it. And then due to the time limitation, I'm not going into too details with my platform. Feel free to check out my platform in your social media account. So it's YLEO for Rector. And then I yield my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Alright, thank you all for your opening statements. We will now move into the first round of questions about the rector position. Just to remind you all, we will be going orders from 1 to 6, and the question will start with Emil at number 1, Will number 2, Caitlin number 3, Leo number 4, and Saiba number 5, and Owen number 6. So the first question we have for Emil is, how will you overcome the learning curve of becoming the rector?
Thank you so much. That's a great question. So Saib and I are quite lucky because we served on Senate and we've had a soft start for interacting with all the stakeholders that we need to interact with. I just came back from the board Senate retreat where the entire Board of Trustees and the Senate met together to discuss what their strategic vision is for the next years. And through this consultation, conversations with the principal, vice provost, and a lot of different faculty representatives and other senators, I feel like I have a good idea of the relationships at Queen's that I'll have to deal with as rector.
Awesome, thank you for that answer. Our next question is for Will. So this is a pivotal year for the office with an almost year vacancy for the position. How will you make up for lost time?
Yeah, so that's an important question because, of course, we've lost almost a year. And this is where my pillar of hard work comes in. In many ways, the rector position, because it is not the AMS president or some other position with a specific portfolio, the rector can sort of decide to do what he or she or they want to do. And so that is why I will have as my first priority, when I put myself to my hard work, to bring the rector to the students and make the rector known by the students so that the rector can actually work for them. I'll do this through postering, social media, but most importantly, talking face-to-face with people, going to events, consulting with the AMS and with all the other different student body governments, and with former rectors and also alumni, because all of that is key to knowing how best to make this position represent students, and do that as soon as possible because we need more representation. Thank you.
Our third question is for Caitlin. Many students do not understand what a rector is or does. How will you change this?
Increasing the visibility of the rector role is of utmost importance to me, and I would do this through demonstrating my inclusivity and accessible nature of the 3 projects and pillars that I'm hoping to work on in my term. And in addition to that, I would also have bi-weekly boothing in common areas such as the ARC or MacQuarie, as some people may not be particularly interested in working with me on my 3 projects and goals. However, if they still have communication or feedback questions that they would like to address with me, I want to make sure that I'm approachable and readily available to listen to all of this feedback.
Our next question is for Leo. The position can be difficult and challenging at times. How will you manage your own well-being while being a student leader?
Well, so this question is kind of related to like time management in some case. So as I kind of briefly mentioned, I hold 12 positions, 7 different student government, while also initiative like 5 student government projects. So at the peak, I got like 16 meetings in a week, and then 6 in a day. So I never find like the time management huge issues for me. So in terms of student wellness or wellness for myself, I do have some like method I will recommend everyone can use. First is kind of like sometimes I just sit in the lakeside and then just kind of like meditating in some case, or even like doing some yoga at home. And then also something like I'm also writing a book right now. So sometimes you can write like all your emotion or your thoughts into the books, and then that will help you to kind of like release your stress in some case. And also pretty into like self-improvement books, and then from there you can find like the things you need. And lastly, kind of as a history about myself, I can always like kind of in some case like recall the memory or like review the history, and then if you compare those with the people who's in the past, and then you will find like no difficulty in this case. So in some case, nothing to lose. And then thank you.
Okay, and our next question is for Saiba. Under your own understanding, what makes this position so unique to Queens, and why is it important to campus?
Yeah, for sure. That's an amazing question. I just want to start off by saying I actually went around Queen's campus with $1 in my hand, and I asked people around me, do you know what a rector is? 90% of people did not know. No clue. And this position is so unique and very important to Queens because you act as a liaison between students and admin. Without having that bridge, admin will not be able to know or able to even think of what student concerns are, because us as students are the people who know what our concerns are. We are our own support system, and if the people, the big decision makers at the top, aren't aware of these various problems, then nothing will be solved. So I think a big thing is allowing people to first know what a rector is. And that makes this position so unique because we are given the opportunity to sit side by side with the principal and the chancellor to make decisions as a student, which is such a huge honor and deal to campus. And this is so important so we can voice our concerns, so we can talk about the various problems happening, such as the lack of student engagement, the lack of mental health resources on campus. And these are things that need to be voiced to admin.
We will now enter the last question of the round for Owen. Are there any aspects of the position you don't think you are prepared for? How will you work to improve that, as well as the position in tandem?
Yeah, I think the role being vacant for the last year has meant that there's a lot of work to be done. It's not like jumping on a running treadmill. There's time to warm up to speed. And I think there's no better experience to prepare myself myself as a rector is being a Queen's student. I could sit around and talk about my experience in student government or clubs, but the rector doesn't advocate for clubs. The rector doesn't advocate for student governments. They advocate for students. And I think that is the number one thing that has prepared me for the rector role. I will also mention that there's learning to be done. I think humility is very important in the role of a rector, especially when you have a student sitting in such a high position. But it's important to make sure that you remember where you came from, and remember that you're a student first, and students need to come first. So while there may be learning, I do feel that I'm very prepared.
Okay, we will now move into our second round of questions, all concerning student life, and we'll start off again with Emil. What kind of experiences do you have with students on campus?
So I think this is a little bit of a misnomer because in the past 2 years we've spent most of our time off campus. And slowly transitioning back to on campus, I'm sure we're all excited but also a little bit scared with COVID and how that will affect us. But by and large, speaking to my fellow graduate students, I've heard a lot of struggles with mental health, productivity, imposter syndrome, and I'm hoping that with return to campus and proper training, we, along with all the other students, will get the supports we need to transition back and return to post-COVID normalcy.
Our second question for Will. What have your consultations led you to understand the challenges facing students on campus?
Yes, this is an important question because communication is so key to everything the rector does. So I have consulted with various alumni, and I have learned two major things. First, most students do not know who the rector is, and so often the rector becomes sort of isolated from the student body. And that needs to change because the rector is the student's representative and needs to be everywhere that students are, fighting for students at every level and in every way they possibly can. The second thing I've learned is that in the past at Queen's, the Queen's community used to be much closer. The whole community, the professors, the students, the administration used to be almost like a family. And yet, for some reason, this is slowly breaking apart. We are slowly becoming disconnected, and the rector is a perfect person to change that, to bring the administration back to the students, to bring professors back to the students, to make students no longer numbers and make them people again, so that we are one big family, one community, who all can work together to have the best university experience we possibly can.
Our next question is for Caitlin. With the switch to in-person and the volatility of the pandemic's effect on students, how will you and the rector role support students?
With the pandemic, I'm sure we've all seen the lasting effects of all the lockdowns and various rules on our mental health. My third pillar in terms of mental wellness is to make sure that the current policy regarding automatic academic consideration to be continued and granted even when the COVID-19 pandemic is deemed to be over by public health authorities, as this ensures that students have the choice, ability, and freedom to take care of themselves while they're studying.
Our next question is for Leo. How will you strive to understand different student needs, both with graduate and undergraduate students?
So for this question, I'm going to bring out one of my pillars. So for the student engagement stuff. So I will open different portals for students to submit their concern, that kind of stuff. And then current project I'm currently working on is the student government website. So I'm going to have a button there, and then for the student to submit their concerns for anything they hope to improve on. And then I will also utilize a student representative from ACES, the different years of representative, and then also for example from COMSA, the lower year and upper years, and then just because they're the people who know about the people they represent for their years. And I'm also going to talk with different cultural leaders, and cultural clubs leaders, and then different club leaders, student leaders, and then so another way is I'm like a marketing person in some ways. So I'm going to utilize some marketing, different, for example, from AMS, the marketing office, and then for ACES, all different kind of events. For example, like maybe we can have a sort of like conference where different like the office hours, that kind of stuff, just to promote those to the student directly. Thank you.
Our next question is for Saiba. What do you foresee as a challenge in the future for Queen students, and how can you be proactive in your role?
Yeah, for sure. So we're slowly going into a post-pandemic world. And through the pandemic itself, we have seen a high increase in mental health issues and low decrease in student engagement. So in order to be proactive in these future issues that are slowly increasing and decreasing respectively, for wellness, something I want to implement is a support texting line for students. So this is not a crisis line, it's a support line where anyone can come and text someone for support. This will allow people to get immediate support when it comes to any mental health resource that they need, as well as students understand other student problems, which is something that will be centralized towards Queen students itself. So implementing this texting service is something that will help to allow students to have the immediate attention that they need. As well as when it's talking about student engagement, there has been so many issues, especially with Queen's traditions, that has been going downhill, especially when it comes to orientation. Orientation week has had a very decrease in participation, especially through orientation leaders and such, because of the incoming classes that weren't able to have a regular orientation week as previous years have. So helping to make these roles fun again, make these roles more engaging and more appealing to the student body is something that I will choose to be proactive in my role in the future.
And our last question in this round is for Owen. So how can you be a direct support to Queen students as a peer in this role?
Yeah, I think it first starts with the mechanisms and how you actually interact with students. I think I've seen many friendly faces in the crowd that I've been boothing. You've seen me out there, you've seen probably many of us out there, and I think that really speaks to how involved you need to be in actually the Queens and campus community. That's why I propose to have regular boothing scheduled for the rector, also an open door policy to make sure that no matter what, students feel a friendly face is willing to talk to them and they're open to hearing their concerns. I think it also means that being a direct support means directly having conversations and consultations about the issues that matter most. That means housing, that means sexual violence prevention and response, that means engagement, that means many different things, but making sure that you are truly reflecting the needs and wants of the student body is really important, and I think really making sure that you are a prominent figure on campus that students feel welcome and willing to come and talk to.
Okay, we will now go into our third round of questions, all concerning the university. And we'll start off again with Emil. How will you be a liaison for students to the university?
Thank you. So the key here is to delegate to other leaders. Nobody will know what's more necessary and required for the students than leadership representing those students. And you won't be able to liaise directly with each student. You must delegate. You cannot represent almost 30,000 students at the same time as one person. And we have so many excited and passionate students that listening to them, you will hear exactly what each faculty and member will need. Thank you.
Our next question is for Will. Are there any committees that you want to sit on at the university level and that you could have an impact on?
So I'm going to be honest, as a first year student, I do not know what all the committees at the university are, and that's why my first point in my platform is to do the hard work of figuring out what the different committees are, what students want me to be on, and where I need to be doing the work. Because as rector, I want to be the students' rector. I want to speak for and on committees and in different parts of the Queen's University that students want, and I do not want to spend my time doing speaking where I am not needed or where students do not want me to be, because that would be not representing students, that would be representing myself and that is not my goal as rector. My goal as rector is to represent the needs, concerns, and what all students want. Thank you.
Our next question is for Caitlin. In your understanding, what are the biggest challenges to get students' voices heard at the highest level?
The biggest challenge in getting the concerns across to the university administration is the path that it has to take from student all the way up to the top. And the rector has a seat on the Board of Trustees, which I would leverage in directly bringing those concerns forward. And in terms of student representation, that's what the rector is supposed to advocate for on the board. However, I also admit that I may not understand many of the other concerns that different students from different groups are experiencing. As such, I would regularly consult with individuals representing intersectional values that I would invite to join my rector's advisory board, who could also aid me in coming up with the best policies and advice for the Board of Trustees to better serve the Queen's community.
Our next question is for Leo. How will you utilize the AMS and SGPS in your role of advocacy?
Well, this is a great question. So first, also as I mentioned, I'm in both AMS and ACES marketing office. So I feel marketing, like the office, was something I'm going to utilize the most. And then as we can see, we have 6 candidates this year, and then which is highest in decades, I believe. So I will give the credits to my supervisor, Peter. Yeah, he did a lot, and quite a smart guy. And then also to Katie's, the marketing office officials for ACES. So, and then also I'm going to utilize some for example, environment commissions, and then also equities office for ACES. And then those are I would say we have the great quality of all the service we provide. What we need is the quantity. So what I mean is we need to deliver those messages to the student and then make it popular layers. And that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Our next question is for Saira. One of the main challenges is lack of communication between the university and the student body. How will you bridge this?
Amazing. So this is a really important question, just because I think communication goes both ways. In this case, when it comes to the university and governance in general, I would say lots of people don't know what happens, especially as a rector. As I said, I went around, no one knew what a rector is. I'm a senator as well, and as a senator, I have been making it my passion and drive to showcase what goes on at Senate, to make graphics and posts about what happens at also ASIS Assembly. Because in order for students to even voice their concerns, they have to know what's going on in the first place. Their problems could already be underway or being solved in the process, but they wouldn't know just because they're not aware of what goes on in government at Queen's. So being aware of what happens in Senate, what happens on the Board of Trustees or any other sort of committee or board is very important for this bridge of communication. And through this, I would like to make a centralized platform or a website of sort, or maybe even social media, wherever it's most accessible for students to see. But in order to showcase what goes on in government, that is my strive for everything I do as rector. If elected, I will be showcasing everything that is done. And from there, students will be informed, and students will be able to communicate their concerns to bettering the university. Thank you.
And our last question for this round goes to Owen. Do you have any strengths with advocacy roles? What are you especially passionate about?
Yeah, I think my strength is truly caring for the well-being of the university. I want to see us all succeed together. That's really important to me from the first minute that I stepped on campus and I was welcomed home. It's a truly humbling experience, but it also makes you feel connected. And I feel like we've all had this. That's all why we're in the room. That's all why we're passionate about Queen's, is because we truly are a community. Now, what am I especially passionate about? I'm especially passionate about two things, and they're in my platform that you can see. But the first is housing. We are students. We need places to live. When the rent is absurdly high and the living conditions are absurdly low, that takes a toll on our mental health, on our academics, and I think that's something that needs to be communicated to the university, because they will only care once it's put in a way that impacts them. And secondly is sexual violence prevention and response. I think there are a lot of amazing resources on campus, Barbelocan, the bystander intervention program, but there needs to be more. There needs to be a more proactive approach, and that's why I want to start a conversation about toxic masculinity and what it actually means to be both a man and an ally on campus. And I don't think it's just enough to be an ally. The onus is on men to make sure that we are supporting the women who we care about most, and ensuring that they feel safe and accepted on campus. And I really think that if we're looking to make change from within, it starts with that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're entering our last round of questions, and that's all going to be concerning policy proposals. I will also take this time to remind all candidates that you do have one rebuttal. You can utilize that during this round or during the question period later on. And you can do that, you can indicate your desire to do so by raising your hand. So our first question is for Emil. What sets you apart from other candidates?
I think I've made more mistakes. Not because I necessarily make more at any given time, but because I've had more time to. This is my 9th year in academia, and I have seen how education works outside of Queen's. I've seen it how it works in Europe, in different institutions in Canada, like Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University. And there are definitely things that could be done differently. For example, in Germany, exams are offered more than once. You can retake your exam if you feel like you didn't do as you should have expected. And I think that's a great opinion, because your education should not be how you perform in one specific time. It should be how well you can perform overall. Thank you.
Our second question is for Will. What policies do you see that need upgrading in and around the university community?
So this is a great question, and it speaks directly to my platform. So on Saturday, I was at the ARC, and I met a student who asked me about my initiatives for sustainability. And we had a great discussion, and what I learned from that was that sustainability is one of the most important things on students' minds right now at Queen's. And so I'm not going to say what other policies I might have in my own idea or in my own mind, because I want to talk to students like the woman who I met at the ARC, and I want to learn what are student issues and what students want, because it is the student issues which should be the top of mind for rectors, such as sustainability, such as mental health, such as sexual harassment issues, such as so many things that I could list off, but I'd rather hear them from the students who are directly hurt by them, and so that I can fight for those students specifically and for all students at Queen's. Thank you.
Our third question is for Caitlin. How will your policies benefit the broader Queen's community?
In focusing my efforts on 3 issues to begin with, I hope that I can enact change quicker in my term of being a rector, and therefore demonstrating power that the rector holds as a result of the student support and building trust within the many students who may be interacting with the rector for their first time during their time at Queen's, as the role has been vacant for almost a year. And it is my hope that my policies leave a lasting effect behind, affecting students after my time and after your time as well. I would hope to leave behind a legacy in fostering a transparent culture through more clear communication. I would like to see more green spaces thrive on campus, enriching our Queen's community. And lastly, I know that I would have succeeded if it is easier for us to access academic consideration when we need it most.
Our next question is for Leo. How are your platform points unique to other student leaders and associations? Why the rector, and why not faculty or AMS role?
Well, first, I did my platform quite differently. So I adopted the idea from the art of war. So I kind of divided it into 4 different elements, try to make it more engaging. but I just find there's way too much things we need to address, especially during this time of year with the transition from online back to in person, and with the absence of a director for about a year. And then, yeah, speak of sometimes might do it differently with other candidates, might be career development. I find that is quite crucial, especially we need to make sure our students, Queen students, to succeed after graduates, either it's for the undergraduates or graduates. And then, there's also something I need to make sure all my clients are accountable in some case, and then make sure they can be achieved on time. So and then finish. Thank you.
Our next question is for Saiba. How do you measure accountability?
Yeah, so I measure accountability by the ability of if you're able to deliver. Any of us today can say whatever we want. This is a political campaign. Anyone can voice anything, get elected, and then just not do anything in office. I measure accountability by actually going through with what we are saying. Whatever I am saying today, everything in my platform is everything I want to initiate into the Queen's community. It's also accountability for holding admin accountable. Also being on Senate, we have been trying to raise our voices to admin for so long, and through these roles, they're not being held accountable for what they are disagreeing to. This entire year, we have been trying to push for higher accommodations, accessibility to accommodations, but no one is listening. I say holding accountability and being able to deliver in anything you're saying is very important. Through me trying to push forward an initiative to increase mental health resources, such as allocating more money to more counselors, increasing student engagement, and being transparent with every information that I provide, I think that showcases that you can be accountable and hold me accountable for everything I'm saying. Thanks.
And our final question will be from Mr. Owen. Why should students trust in the platform?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the trust is already starting to be built. Being out there, talking to students, it's not my platform, it's our platform. I've consulted with various student government officials and past leaders to really create a platform that reflects students' needs, both past, present, and future. I think these issues are really too big to ignore, and that's why they're in my platform, and that's why my platform is so comprehensive and unique in that. I think it doesn't stop now. The platform is just the start. I think these consultations that I've been having have been extremely helpful, but they don't stop. They need to continue. Everyone who I've talked to, I want to continue these conversations and continue a path forward. And these problems are really realistic, powerful, and important. I think there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of work to be done, but we can do it together. And making sure that students' needs and priorities are reflected in the Office of the Rector, but also the administration knows that there is someone who's advocating for students at the highest level. I think that is the most important part.
Okay, I'd like this opportunity to say thank you to all the candidates for answering all our prepared questions. We will now move into a 10-minute intermission, and then we'll come back and we'll be taking questions for the audience. So take a break.
Stand up. Yeah.
I don't
I know.
Okay, so welcome back to our 38th Rector debate. My name is Laura Benny. Use your pronouns. I've been here for a few years. If you've seen me in a couple of debates, I felt like it was a fun place for me to round out my fourth year in student government and interact with some candidates. So it's a lot of fun for me to see this first in-person debate with a lot of candidates in the 3 years that I've been in election. So thank you very much again for sticking with me around here. And so now comes the fun part. So something we haven't been able to do in a while is have our audience directly answer questions. I see we've already handed some up. So how this is going to work is members of the audience will be able to raise your hand in order to ask candidates questions. And you can direct your question at one singular candidate, multiple candidates, or candidates as a whole. We are going to keep the responses to 1 minute to ensure that every candidate gets their word in. So kind of speed round answer, kind of like what it's going to be like if you're at the board of trustees and the adults are trying to talk over you all at once and you got to answer. You can ask a fun question if you want. I'd say stick to things that are relevant. We will dismiss you if you are heckling, harassing, asking a really not fun question. There are such things, stupid questions. And I will make sure that these questions are repeated so that everybody can see online. As well, just to repeat, for our online viewers, we do have captions if you want to click on the captions button, as well as this recording will come out tomorrow with the questions overlaid, and so everyone will be able to see it. So, with that being said, if anybody would like to begin our question period, please raise your hand. Summer.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question for all the candidates today. By considering the recent incidents of female students being followed around the university district, and the past, current, and very likely the future sexual assault towards the female students, how are you planning to use your position to work with AMS Vice President, University Affairs, and SGPS, Faculty Society, and University Administration, and implement actionable plans?
I think that was probably loud enough that we could hear. So what will happen is now we will go in the same order as the questions were before, and so we will start with Emil. And you have 1 minute starting now.
Thank you so much. So that is an incredibly good point, and the best way to go forward with that is addressing all the possible resources you have to see what existing initiatives have been taken, to see where the gaps are and where you need to continue. Definitely more on-campus presence with students, such as walking home, is definitely something I'd push for out of naivety here. But I think it is imperative to look at what is currently being done and where the gaps are and proceed from there. Thank you.
We will then move to our second, Will.
Yeah, so that is one of the most important issues by far. And so I think as rector, I'll have to do 2 things. 1, I'll have to talk to people and figure out how exactly I can help to improve this. But 2, at every step, at every committee, at every time I'm ever thinking, I need to always have in the back of my mind that we need to change the culture, we need to change how people interact, and we need to try to get people to start taking this seriously, because for too long people have talked about it, but stuff has not actually happened, and sexual assault, sexual harassment continues, and it is unacceptable. Thank you.
On to Caitlin.
I would make sure that all of the students are aware of the different services that Queen's offers to help. As such, this includes walk home and even campus security offering walks or taxi trips for students, and making sure that everyone knows what is available, as right now it doesn't seem like people may not know of all the different options, and making sure that I use my voice to let them know this.
No.
Oops.
At least it said no laptops or anything on the table, so you can't spill that on them.
Yeah, so speak about info stuff. So I will use I will do two things. First is I will make walk home in my popular words. I have to try a couple times to walk home, especially for female students here. It's definitely gonna be a great service we can utilize. And the second thing is something from the University of Chicago. What they no trauma, and that kind of stuff. So I do have some astrology for those. And then,
Off to Simon.
Yeah, so I think the first thing would be to actually go into preventative measures versus supports after it has happened, just because you want to prevent the situation entirely. So something that I would say is when it comes to incoming students, any like first year students or anyone that's coming to Queens, there should be like a mandatory presentation showcasing the various resources, the various preventative measures that should be put in place, and how to end the various things that come to consent, harassment, and violence. As well, I actually have a mentor for a first year mentor, as I'm an arts and science mentor, and from there, my first year student was expressing that the walk home hours are very short in duration because it's still, it's dark before the hours set in place. So something that I would also like to implement is increasing walk home hours. So when it's from sunset to night, just because it allows for a safer place for students to access the resource at all times.
Sorry, I'm not able to just use a bubble. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I was just wondering, I'll take my kid. I'm just wondering how someone who takes the role of director actually has purview over walk home, and how the rector might actually start to address more systemic issues rather than perhaps something that actually is an AMS service.
Simon, you have 1 minute to answer.
Yeah, for sure, that's a great question. So as rector, I would actually argue that you're supposed to work together with the AMS as well as the SGPS, and you're supposed to get student voices from everywhere. And AMS and SGPS are huge bodies of Queen's students where they are supposed to voice the concerns. So having a concern from a student that they're not able to get the support they need, especially with the ongoing crisis that people are following students in cars, is a big thing. So I think from there, implementing that and expressing what that voice is something that should be said. And then from there, you work together with the various committees to implement change. And then as you mentioned with the very systemic issues, as I mentioned before, with the various presentations with incoming students and providing those resources from the get-go and being able to talk and centralize those resources into one place so people know what they are is very important, and it should become
Thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sorry.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to just recognize my own positionality in that I've never had to worry about walking home during the dark or being followed. But it is something that I live with girls, and it's something that they have talked about and actually opened my eyes to, because I didn't realize how much of an issue it was because of my own positionality. But I'd like to just reference how a student being followed, we all saw it on our Instagram, it was multiple things, how the response was. Is it really necessary that we have a very large police presence during St. Patrick's Day homecoming, but then don't see that same police presence when we have first years and people being followed on our Queen's campus? And I think that also starts with really making sure that we address these systemic issues, and as I said before, really addressing the topic of toxic masculinity on campus. And how we emerge from COVID, I think that we've been locked down for the last 2 years, and we will unfortunately be seeing more incidents of these. But it's really the rector's responsibility to work directly with directly with the AMS and SGPS to combat these issues. Thank you.
Okay, so now, this is an assembly. Brian.
So student-centric involvement seems to be reaching a finite junction where the unexpected, unpaid student labor, general lack of interest in virtual schooling, and COVID-19 is leading to decreased engagement across the board. How would you, in your role as the rector, reinvigorate the quote-unquote Queen spirit in co-curricular involvement to a generation that has spent most of their formative ages in social interactions behind the screen?
Is this to particular candidate or all candidates? Okay, we will begin with Emil.
I have very little time to think of a response here. So I think the key issue with engagement has been that we have had 2 years of a time where basically we have completely switched the normal way we interact with people. This is not going to be something that we can flip the switch back, ask them to come back, and just assume that things are back to normal. This will take a lot of time to provide the resources that all these clubs have and provide them with more resources so they're able to continue and advertise what they are trying to get involved and to give those supports to leadership in the community so that students have the ability to slowly discover what they might be interested in at their own pace so they're not overwhelmed by just suddenly being jumped and put back into everything they were in before so that they can balance their mental health as they re-explore their social aspects. Thank you.
We'll then go on to Will.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is for the rector to go out and talk face-to-face with people. And it's true, as I think Emil said, the rector cannot talk to every single Queen student. That would be impossible. But through being at events, through actually walking around and just saying, look, I'm the rector, this is my job, this is how I can promote, these are the different initiatives that I am promoting, that is how you can get it out. Even though, yes, people mainly interact through social media and through phones, how to get people really interested and how to get them to show up at events, show up at different celebrations is through talking to them at tables, in cafeterias, on the street, face to face. Thank you.
To increase student engagement among the grade 12s that are just going to come and start in university in September, we definitely can start easing them into the different activities that Queen's offers. This can start even before orientation week or residence programming and training or the residence processes that they have to complete before they can get their room contract. So this would include sending emails to make sure that the students are getting excited and matching different activities with different students who would be the face of these activities so they can show that this is someone that they could look up to, someone maybe they could ask questions to, and someone they could maybe see themselves in the same position when they eventually start.
Yeah, I forgot a lot to say for this one. This is my first pillow. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to work closely with Team ETC here, and then I believe it's also one of your pillows, so increase student engagement. Second thing is, as I mentioned, for the also kind of like centralize all the stuff into a website, and that's what I'm currently working on as a first year intern for AMS. And the third thing is I'm going to open for the in-person club fairs, and that's why I heard from like many, especially all-year students. And then yeah, they hope to have like those stuff that you open. And then the fourth thing is going to be more context, and then also more awards. And this is what like Commerce Society did. And I was also quite surprised about like for some positions they actually even have like 100+ applicants just to apply those. And then what it is they have those awards and that different kind of stuff, which leads them to one of the highest student engagement at Queen's. And yeah.
I think a big thing right now is a lot of larger clubs and well-known clubs of Queen's University. All the members of those are now alumni. And through that, there is the emergence of various smaller clubs on Queen's University. And they're not able to, or they might not be able to know about the various resources and event spaces and abilities to create events at Queen's University. So obtaining a central resource guide or various presentations to allow students to be able to put on these events will increase student engagement, just because these smaller clubs aren't able to have the resources or don't have access to actually putting on these performances and events. So that's something that I would implement. As well, I think increasing student engagement in the Rector platform as well. As we know, when it comes to town halls with any political position, the engagement is increasingly low. And when it comes to those sort of things, I wanted to also implement a hybrid thing where I can host an event, but also people can talk their concerns. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Student engagement is definitely on the decline, if we all know that. But I think the emergence of code is hopefully going to kickstart that engagement. I was in the art today. I had an amazing time. There was music playing. There were multiple people boothing. It felt back to normal. So I think there is a want for Queen students to come back to this new normal, to come back to how we once were. Certainly leaving certain things behind, but bringing new things forward. And I think my experiences in first year, having an in-person first year, experiencing an in-person orientation week, I know the feeling, the goosebumps that you get sitting with your entire class being welcomed home. And I think we really need to bring that back. I think we also need to redefine engagement. Engagement doesn't necessarily need to mean involvement with 7 other clubs and holding in many different positions. It means engaging with your community in different ways, whether that's equity work, whether that's making sure that other voices are heard. We need to really redefine engagement, as well as I think the rector needs to have a presence on campus, and they need to be connected with everyone. Okay.
Thank you. I'm actually going to start going like this when there's like 10 seconds left. I know it's probably like your sunlight saying that so, okay. Mr. President, Zaid Casson, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Wait, my computer just went on sleep.
And then I've got a couple more questions back there. So we'll do Zaid, David, and Oscar.
Hi folks, I'm Zaid. My pronouns are he, him. So one of the primary duties of the rector is sitting on the board of trustees, being the main legal and financial body of the university. As the trustee, you will sign a non-disclosure agreement, and much of the time, if not the entire time, you will not be able to share what happens on the board of trustees to students. How will you navigate this challenge? How will you effectively advocate for students without being able to communicate back to students afterwards?
Guess what? We're going to go 6-1. Owen, that means you're
No time to wait. Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I think I really want to make sure that students understand what's going on behind closed doors, but as you said, signing an NDA, that's complicated. But I think almost redefining what that NDA means, and does it mean that we can't disclose specific information, or does it mean that we can't talk about generally what's been going on? I really want to introduce a bi-weekly message to the students to really talk about what I've been working on and what the work that I've been doing has been seen on campus while looking at the strategic plan of the principal. I was actually very impressed to see that there are a lot of things that are going on campus that I didn't know came directly from the top. So I think reframing what is being done at the administrative level is really important, and understanding what can be said, and what can be said perhaps in a different way that frames the same information without breaking the NDA.
This is the fun word.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah, for sure. This is a really great question, just because a big part of my platform is being transparent of the information that is shared between the governance side of the university. And being restricted of not sharing this information is a big deal. But in this case, when it comes to allocating funds through the Board of Trustees, it should be also, maybe the students won't be able to know the specifics, as mentioned before, but you are able to voice the concerns of what the students need to the Board of Trustees. You may not be able to say the specific allocations of where the money is going, but you are able to showcase what the specific needs are and what needs to be changed. So from there, I would be able to showcase what the needs are, but not specifically say what the money or where the money is going. Thank you.
So mine will be pretty short. So first I will make sure that as I sign the form, I will make sure first that 100% confidential. So what I'm going to do, I will not going to express in the form of words. I will express in the form of action. That'll be all.
Caitlin?
Just memorize the order. You have to reverse it now.
In effectively taking into account others' perspectives and hopefully voicing these to the Board of Trustees, I would hope that any small change on the short-term basis would highlight what is going on without me directly voicing it to the students. And I would make sure to continue getting the feedback through various modes to ensure that I'm still listening to students, even though I cannot tell them directly what I've been doing.
Will?
So when I built the student government at my last school, we had a committee and it was about judicial affairs and judicial concerns with students, and of course everybody on it had to sign an NDA and not tell people the specifics, but we could tell them that this was something that we cared about, that student representation when it came to judicial affairs was an important thing. And so I think, sort of like Owen said, although I will need to read the NDA, figure out what I can and cannot say, and from what I cannot say, if it is details, still say the broad things, still connect to students the important overreaching goals of the board, and also, of course, from talking face-to-face with students, I will be able to bring to the board what the students want brought, not what I want brought. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would actually argue this is not a concern. This comes out of fiduciary duty, and it actually has two benefits. The first is you're allowed to have candid conversations. Within the board, you're allowed to share exact opinions and exactly why you feel that way without fear of any repercussions. Secondly, this means the board has to come together externally when they face external stakeholders. And an example of this is, I would make the argument that graduate students need increased stipends, but I won't just say we need more money. I would say you can't afford not to give graduate students more money because you will lose them to other universities that are giving them that stipend. So it's all about framing the question and voicing concerns in that way.
Thank you, and that concludes that question. We'll move on to David for the next question. Or Matt?
Okay, I'm going. One sec. So, for decades, relations between students and our community and police have been rather strained. And over the last 2 years, with police forces in the student district, excessive force used by police on students, and if any of you guys have looked at the comments on the Kingston Whig Standard lately, that seems to have increased. And so, thank you. My question for you is, where do we go from here? And what will you as the rector do to repair those relationships? Or, I guess, perhaps are they beyond repair?
Now, we're going to go, is that to anybody in particular? Everyone?
Everybody.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay. We're going to go 3 down this time. So, Caitlin.
Three. Okay.
Sorry, I feel like I gotta just mix it up. For anybody, you know who's going first.
I recognize that the $750,000 sum that was that was given to the town to solve this problem currently is a large sum. However, this definitely can serve as a wake-up call to Queen's students. And I identify and represent with the 95% of the student population that doesn't come from Kingston. However, this is now our home away from home during the term, and if someone were to come and damage my town at my home at several occasions throughout the year, I would not be too happy with that. So hopefully students can understand that this is a wake-up call to perhaps change the way that they behave when they're not in school, and to understand the needs of other people in the city too.
Leo.
Yeah, so in terms of police, I actually have seen like those, especially on like Friday night, there's like police all around campus, especially for like in some sense it's kind of like mentoring side the first year student in some case. Yeah, so how I'm going to repair kind of this relationship, like I've done like many like negotiation stuff with like public service and then multi-level government before, back in high school and then at hearing things. So what I would say is like we need to build the trust between the police and then the students. So what I mean here is kind of like we try to for the student try not to violate some like public measures in some case, and then try to make it everything like don't touch the right line. That's one way to say.
Yeah, so what happened with the immense police brutality that happened was not great. Especially, so I know there was lots of instances that happened during it where police would target students, and it puts students in a very unsafe place, especially when they come from different backgrounds or they feel like they're more of a target when it comes to policing. So having police was not the right thing to do in that case. So I think also amending that relationship is also showcasing how much good Queen's University has done for the Kingston community. We only showcase the bad in the media when it comes to these things. The amount of work that I've seen, especially because coming from arts and science, the amount of work that ASIS has donated, the amount of money they have earned and created for the different charities should also be showcased. So showcasing the good media as well as not just the bad media.
Move on to Owen. I think I just have to multiple microphones.
That's a good point. Well, I think the relationships are absolutely repairable. I don't think anything is beyond repair because we are resilient. Kingston's community is resilient. I'd like to first start with a conversation I had with a police officer a few months ago, and first recognize my positionality that I was able to do that. He talked about how he felt that the narrative portrayed in the media is not one that the police actually agree with. While they were there, and while their presence was immense, and there were tickets that were given out that were unjustified and absolutely horrible, they were just doing their job. And I don't say that because they were doing a good job. I think that there's more systemic issues to be looked at. I think the media really poured fuel on the fire, honestly, I think. And that only made us feel more animosity towards them, which then in turn made the relationships even weaker. So I think there is a lot of room to grow, certainly, and it starts with those conversations.
Thank you. So I participated on a subcommittee with Principal Dean regarding this issue, and Queen's as a non-for-profit institution does not pay tax, and that is where this original payment is coming from, in order to ensure that the Queen's community contributes to the local community. And it's important to note that some of these issues aren't related because of Queen's students. For example, last year in St. Patrick's Day, up to two-thirds of the attendees were estimated not to be Queen's community members. So the issue is not necessarily Queen's community and the police, it's overall addressing the wider community, but also focusing on harm reduction. So in the future, we should focus on how we can redirect these funds with more specific acts and more specific asks to make sure that they are directed in ways that we would like to see them implemented, not simply directed to the police force.
And lastly, Will.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely repairable. I think this is where some of my experience comes in. So I have worked with a lot of different political campaigns and politicians, and as Owen was saying, it's the police's fault, but it's also not. It's more that the city sent them, that there's a divide or a disconnect between Queens and the city. And so one of my first initiatives would be, if possible, as rector, to try to go and talk to city council, to the mayor, connect with those people, with those politicians who can actually help change the way that Kingston sees Queens and help to implement policies that are, help to keep parties from getting out of control, but do not hurt, intimidate, and just hurt students in many, many ways.
Thank you, and that concludes that audience question. I know we have one from the back with Asla. Do you need to yell loudly, like into the camera or something?
Of course. Okay, so Asma from the Journal. Kind of two questions. So the first question for everyone is a lot of student leaders talk about harm reduction methods. What specific harm reduction methods are we talking? The AMS used to have Reading Street Festival. Would it be something like that? The second question, and this is more directed towards the folks that are currently on Senate. On March 13, 2020, the Journal published an article called "Calls for Sexual Assault Center on Campus Unanswered for More than 30 Years." This article highlighted three things. There were two reports, one in 1989, one in 2015, both Senate reports. And a lot of the concerns in both of those reports still have not been addressed to this day. So, when you're rector, you're still going to sit on the Senate. What changes? Is it just a new title, or
So, my understanding, though, that question's directed at both Saiba and Neil?
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. And this one we will go two upwards, so we will start with Will.
Can you repeat your first question? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. So what specific harm reduction measures are you talking about, or do you want to implement in your time as rector, or what do you work to implement?
Yeah, so I think that's an important question because I think that just talking about implementing harm reduction policies is not enough. It has to actually happen. And I think that the best way to figure out what the best ones are is by talking to students. I know I've said this a lot, but that is really the only way to know how to best do it. Because giving $750,000 to the city, or having, talking to the media and then having the city send way too many police to parties, or all the different things that we've seen happen haven't worked. And that is often because the administration and different people have not been talking to students, listening to students. They've been making those decisions without consultation. And as rector, I will always consult students.
We want to Emil.
All right, so I will address the second question first, as it pertains to the Senate role. So, as rector, I would actually lose the ability to speak, because I would not participate on Senate as a senator, but as an observer. So I would not be able to speak or ask questions. And the way that this works on Senate is that when these reports are brought forward, they're usually discussed, but if they're rejected, they are kicked back to the subcommittee to be analyzed further. So Senate itself as a body does not look at the specifics of what has to be done. It rather looks at what the deferred subcommittee had analyzed and recommended, and see whether or not that's acceptable to them. So with that, essentially there just needs to be more work done by the appropriate subcommittee to find solutions. In terms of harm reduction, I think mental health crisis response is definitely something that should be involved, but also having more medical adjacent personnel to ensure that any intoxicated behavior is dealt with not by the police, but with a de-escalation response, which I think is quite the most germane response in this case.
I don't know, maybe anyone can find a polite way to say please wrap up. I don't want to close the door. I think that's like two microphones. Alright, must go.
Okay, so I'll start with harm reduction. I think that really starts with within. We're a community that is very close-knit, but I think there are people who don't feel that same community aspect, and that's where mental health starts to become a really big issue. I think mental health and resiliency is really important. Working with the AMS, working with Empower Me, and the various different mental health resources on campus is really important. But the answer isn't just hiring more counselors, because we've tried doing that, and that isn't the answer. There need to be mechanisms within student wellness to overhaul how students interact with the office, how same-day counseling works, how prescriptions are filled, and that will all work towards building a culture of resilience and wellness at Queen's, which in turn lowers harm. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So for the first question on harm reduction, definitely wellness resources need to be advertised to students beforehand, and also showcasing resources such as CORE when it comes to students being intoxicated for long periods of time and not feeling safe to go home at that time, as well as facilitating various like water bottles, snacks, anything to do with helping them in that situation, as well as Naxalon. And then to answer your second question about Senate, I think Emil also said it very well. But in this case, it's definitely not a title. And as a sitting member and an observer, you're still able to showcase the transparency of what is going on in that situation. And from there, those reports that are being said, those reports are able to come back, they're able to be resurfaced, and they're able to be addressed in further meetings. So if it's something that is much needed and it's something students want, it will be brought back, and I will make sure that. Amazing. Thank you.
Can I? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think what everybody's been saying about increasing the mental health resources is very important, but I think there's something that's more sort of central to the issue with mental health resources, and that is that we need to change how people see mental health, that people see, and the whole Queen's community and everybody understands that mental health is just as important and just as key as physical health. The two should be put on par with each other and should be approached similarly or with the same amount of intensity and care taken to them, because they affect each other and they're both equally important to students and everybody's lives. Oh, I thought.
You can ask me questions.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that was unfair.
Sorry.
My apologies. Do you have a question for me?
I do not.
I'll move now on to Leo.
Am I allowed to rebut that since he put his card up for that?
Technically, yes, so you have 1 minute.
Awesome. Just to backtrack on that, yes, completely agree. Mental health and physical health go hand in hand. Holistic models of health is a huge thing. I'm currently on a club called Global Medical Brigades, which amplifies the succession of holistic health, which is very important. But I think they go hand in hand because mental health resources also affect physical health. And we are currently lacking the resources for mental health supports at Queen's. So I think since that is the biggest concern right now, that should be the one that is addressed.
If we will now move on to Leo.
Sorry. Yeah, so first I didn't really agree on in terms of mental health, I believe the service we have at the peer support center right now is it's a kind of really good qualities in some case. So what we need to do, as I mentioned a couple of times, is just to make it public awareness, and then also kind of provide some opportunity for some psychology students stuff to increase that peer support. I can't remember what they call the stuff in the volunteering in the peer support centers, and then that's just what we're going to address. So kind of quality and quantity.
Last two, Caitlin.
Specifically, I would consult with the AMS Social Issues Commission in terms of which harm reduction method they would like to implement first. And then I would also highlight the crucial aspect of the rector role that matches students with the appropriate resources in a confidential manner, free of charge.
Alright, and we have time for one more question. I believe that Ronnie had her hand up last time. If you still have a question.
If anyone has a question for the entire panel and would like to.
Alright, I see Matt.
So in the past, Queen's administration have committed to changing a campus culture, especially for equity-seeking students on campus, and in my opinion, they have oftentimes failed. In your opinion, where or what office does this work begin, and how does the rector get involved, and what does administration accountability specifically look like?
We're going to do 4 down, which means we're going to start with Leo. I'm sorry.
Well, so for this one, it's also voicing office, we're going to focus on marketing office in particular. So marketing office was kind of and then the communication office, which always go together. So those are kind of the voice, in some cases, the voice for the student government in some cases. So we need to make it more, so make it more public awareness, and then that's what I'm going to start with.
Simon? Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Not finished.
Sorry, would you be able to restate the question? I didn't hear the last part of it.
Yeah, that was a mouthful, don't worry. In the past, Queen's administration have committed to changing the campus culture, especially for equity-seeking students on campus. And in my opinion, they have oftentimes failed. In your opinion, where or what office does this work begin? How does the rector get involved? And what does administration accountability specifically look like?
Awesome. All right, so definitely, I think it's not really one office because equity work comes from everywhere. And I think it should be displayed in various things, like definitely the Social Issues Commission in the AMS. That's a big place where I would look for administration in that, as well as any EDII implementations, just because Queen's culture does not fully exhibit these sort of EDII initiatives. So something that I wanted to implement as well is kind of like a cultural showcase, which also will help to increase student engagement. And this cultural showcase will allow different cultures to come together at Queen's University and able to educate Queen's University about the various diverse people at Queen's University. This can include educating about the countries, the types of music, the types of performances and stuff, and this will help to raise awareness about the different cultures and also increase EII in the same, because you're informing the Queen's community about these issues.
That's right on time. What about
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, and I think one that can't be looked at in a singular lens, but I'd like to focus more on the Admissions and Recruitment Office, actually, because I think that is really who creates the Queen's community that we know. Who do we attract, who do we recruit, and who do we want to come to Queen's? I certainly knew about Queen's because of the people who had gone there before me. I saw who they were, and that creates an image of Queen's that I think is very pervasive that we've seen. We've seen what happens by Stolen by Smith, which is now turned into the Smith Transparency Project. We've seen that admissions processes are flawed, and they do create a culture. So we need to change that culture from the very people that are the gatekeepers of Queen's. And that is something that I really want to work on in my role as rector, because I believe that is really where the most impact can be made at a university and administrative level.
Sorry to do this. Would you mind saying it again? Because I might have misunderstood it.
In the past, Queen's administration committed to changing a campus culture, especially for equity-seeking students on campus, and in my opinion, have sometimes failed. In your opinion, where or what office does this work begin? How does the rector get involved? And what does administration accountability specifically look like?
Okay, so there are two parts I'd like to answer. The first part I'll address with the shift in culture. So there's a lot of problems when you simply want to go in and say this behavior is no longer acceptable. You will find reactants. An example is in both commerce and the engineering faculty. If you prohibit a certain behavior, people will rally around it and say we want to keep this is our culture. So some of that work is in the non-academic misconduct subcommittee, and I actually work on that committee with Ann Tierney. With the second question or part, I would like to address what I've done at the Center for Neuroscience Studies. We've had concerns with students that don't have a lot of experience or in smaller labs not being elected to leadership positions. What we did was remove people's names from the ballot and simply had their experience listed, which was not allowed to include any identifiers. So there are small ways that we can look at reducing certain labels to make sure we have an equitable and even playing ground. Thank you.
Off to Will.
Yeah. So I don't think that it happens in any one specific place. I think it has to happen in every single place. And it has to be a change in the mindset, and it has to be a change in how we interact with people and how we treat and understand each other. And I think that essentially it has to be a change in the mindset. And one way that we can change that and also help to bring more people up from diverse backgrounds to help diversify and ensure that there are different mindsets so that people can see how important everybody is and how good everybody is, and make sure that Queen's is more of an equitable place, is to change the image of Queen's so that it is seen less of a white party school and more of a school which includes and engages with everybody, because everybody is important. Thank you.
I would work with the Senate Residence Committee in addressing this problem straight to address the grade 12 students coming into university and who become first years. I'm sitting on the Residence Society right now as a residence facilitator, and there's been issues surrounding the new policy to distribute rooms in a random selection, not random selection, as in students now self-select. In the past, they would randomly select. And if students are self-selecting, the children who may have had more privileged backgrounds end up landing scholarships and student athlete. They may be recruited as student athletes, and therefore they get to choose first. And if they get to choose first, they will all congregate in the same building, most likely a single plus new building, and that creates and breeds such a toxic culture that is not healthy for the other students in other residence buildings and for the dons and student staff as well. So starting from going back to random selection and working with the Senate Residence Committee.
Sorry to end off. So that ends our audience question period, so we can move into closing statements. But before everybody runs at the door, so commend all the candidates. I know that this has been a work in progress since the summer when we started to plan this election, and then we fell flat on our faces. But then we had a lot of support, great support by the election team that came in this year, as well as Zaid was a truly great support in trying to advocate to the university to help round out this position, make sure it had its future cemented within the university itself. So I'm very, very really proud of all the candidates we have up here today, and I could not imagine that, 6 candidates is such a cool feat to have for such a good position. So I want everyone to give the candidates a round of applause. There's always a reason why we're on this side of the microphone and not on that side. It's a hot seat to be on. So and my elections team, Nate, Emma, Lauren, and Erica have been absolutely amazing. University administration, Terry Flindle, they've all been such integral parts of making this happen this year. I also just want to go quickly into talking about what's going to happen on the voting days. As the candidates know, if you don't know already, because it's such a fun thing to talk about, we don't use first past the post anymore when we have more than 2 candidates, which means that when you get your ballot on Sunday at midnight, and if you don't, email Erica, please page your AMS feed or your SUPSD. What will happen is you will rank your candidates 1 through 6. You don't have to rank them all for some reason. Simply voting will let you just maybe put 1, 2, and go. You can also rank none of the above. You have to put that in, but don't do that. I guess that's the dumb cut. Anyway, I think if you want to learn more about ranking your candidates and not first past the post, I would check out CGP Grant on YouTube. Go look it up. It's such, as a poll student, it's such a fun thing to see in practice at the local student government level. But with that, I want to, for the last time, have our candidates do their closing remarks, and I have the random order. Okay, which means we're going to start with candidate number 5, which is I've already forgotten. Saiba, so you're beginning your closing statement, and you have 2 minutes beginning to say your first word.
Awesome. I'd just like to take this opportunity to again thank everybody for coming here tonight, as well as thank you so much to the elections team for putting this on. This is such an amazing opportunity to even be in person today, so thank you all for coming out. As well, I just wanted to reiterate, again, my name is Saiba, and I'm running to be your rector, not anyone else's rector, your rector, Queen Student Rector, whether that's undergraduate, graduate, any faculty that you represent wherever you study, I want to represent you. Those concerns pertaining to my pillars of increasing student wellness services by showcasing that the need for more counselors, especially counselors that align with EDII, as well as hiring more BIPOC counselors and more graduate counselors, which is much needed, as well through student engagement, allowing students to actually have that increased engagement and have those Queen's traditions that are much valued, as well as transparency of information, which is something that needs to be done. Queen's community has to be educated about the important decisions that affect them. This is something they need. This is something that needs to be implemented. And I will do that as your rector. Through my experiences from being on first year in governance to Senate as well, I would love to be your rector and represent you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Up next is Owen.
Yes, and of course, once again, thank you to everyone who made this night possible. I really appreciate it. It's amazing to see so much engagement. Who knew? I'd like to just start with bringing it back to the story that I said before. There is a real need to put students first. We've seen students fall through the cracks, and there needs to be someone who is really advocating for their needs at the very highest level. I want to run for rector because I know how COVID has hurt us. I know how COVID has hurt us, and I know how we need to emerge. We're a university that can wake up on a Saturday morning excited for homecoming, and then wake up on a Sunday morning ready to go to the library. We're a university that can confront the structures of colonization, sexism, and racism embedded in our institution, but that confrontation isn't enough. We need to take action, and I want to be that action. How can we confront these issues and work with everyone to make sure that they are being addressed at the student level, at the administrative level, and then ultimately at a Queen's community level? And that is why I'm running, to put students first. Thank you.
Sorry, it's on the sheet. We randomized it, and then I realized that he's been 5'6" and 4. Okay,
Yeah, so once again, thank you to the election team and to all the people who made it today, and then to the people who's in front of the screen right now. So I will compare the issue I'm going to solve as a dining tree. So you're not going to solve the issues. You're not going to revive the tree by moisturizing its leaf. What are you going to do? You're going to find the roots and then start from that. And then, yeah, in terms of my platform, just try to read it from a different perspective, from like different years, different program, and different social-cultural background. And then, last thing I'm going to address to the visual minority here. So I will make sure I will stay neutral in all of the future conflicts, publicly. But I will do the best that I could under the table. I will try to support both sides from any future conflict stuff. And then, yeah, have a good night. Bye.
As your 38th Rector, I would represent you and your peers through valuable consultations and my learning through the university administration while sitting on the Board of Trustees meetings. I'm ready to lead and serve the Queen's community, advocating for undergraduate and graduate students alike. I pledge to improve communication, sustainability, and wellness, which would aid me in achieving my goal of aiding students in achieving their goals at Queen's. I'm fortunate to have worked with the Alma Mater Society and the Arts and Science Undergraduate Society, both as first-year interns. I'm also currently a residence facilitator with the Resident Society. I look forward to forging more connections with other faculty societies and student groups to broaden my perspectives and further my understanding on the diverse needs and problems that our Queen's community faces. Thank you for your support on my campaign journey.
Thank you so much for the opportunity of participating tonight. It was a privilege and an honor. Too often, personal decisions are driven by taking a bigger slice of the proverbial pie. If everyone in leadership positions works together, listens, and supports other interests in addition to their own, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. The converse is also true. Thinking only of yourself and those you represent will result in less for everyone. I chose to run for rector because I did not want the office to remain vacant. At Senate, the Student Senate Caucus felt the absence of a rector representing our needs and interests. I decided to step up. I did not know at the time that my colleague at Senate, Saiba, had also intended to run. At the beginning of this week, I met with Saiba and Caitlin to discuss the race. Knowing these two motivated, experienced, and selfless individuals had decided to run, I felt confident that I could stay in Senate to finish the work I'd started, if that's what the student body wanted. However, I am not withdrawing my name from the ballot. With a ranked ballot election, I will not hurt any other candidate, split the vote, or in any way alter the election. I will leave it up to the student body if they want me in Senate or if they want me as their rector. Thank you so much.
So hi, thank you all for being here. It really is very great to be able to be in person and to have this. Thank you to everybody who also helped run this and helped get us here and get 6 candidates in this race, because that's pretty amazing. I'll just quickly remind you that I will be if elected, I will be what I'm calling the student's rector. And what that means is that as a student myself, I understand much of what students need, much of what we need, and I want to represent our concerns by talking face-to-face with people, by sitting down at tables, by speaking to the administration, by speaking to Principal Dean, by communicating with everybody, and that's why I have 3 pillars of hard work, communication, and change. And so I think that I would be the best rector, but I love your vote, but I would like to say that the most important thing for everybody watching and everybody here is that no matter who you vote for, you vote on Sunday and Monday, because that is how we get representation, through students voting, being engaged. That is how we have democracy, and that is what we all want to have happen. Whether or not you vote for me or anybody else, please come out, please vote. Thank you.
So, I'm really happy to say that concludes our rector debate. So, I was expecting applause. I don't care who you're voting for, just go out and vote. It'll help me keep my job, because if voting's up, then that's good. And then you will know by, I think 9 p.m. Monday, you will know who your rector is. So that's so very exciting. And you are the rector candidates. If you're the elections team, or just want to stick around, we're going to do some pictures. So, you're dismissed. Thank you so much for coming.
Fist bump. Emil, still a fist bump, please. Fist bump. Good job, folks.